Welcome. In front of me I have the Huawei Mate X6 and I'll go over unboxing along with a look at the device and its specifications. Now before I even get into the box, I just want to start off with the price tag for this device. This was released in 2024, at the end of it being November 26th, and this device comes at a whopping $2,000. It's a just absolutely bonkers price tag for a phone. I just want to really put that out there. It's just bad shit. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because even Samsung, which I consider to be egregiously expensive when it comes down to their high-end models, like the Fold, they don't even ask a $2,000 price tag. And the reason this matters a lot is because of what's inside of the box. So let's just get into it. Actually, I don't need a knife. We do have a little pull tab. Let's go. Okay. So we have a nice foldable device with what looks to be a leather back, or at least probably a pleather one. I kind of want to close it, but considering it's Huawei, I'm kind of scared that it's gonna just start to malfunction, as Huawei tend to do when you fold them. I'm kind of miming at the triple fold one. But it is a very thin device when folded, if you don't count the cameras in, as you can see. So relatively thin. If I compare it to my Z70 Nubia, you can see it's just a tad bit thicker than the Nubia, but it is folded. If obviously I'm unfolded, that will be much thinner. So there we go. There's also a pre-applied screen protector, so that's pretty nice. We got some important notes, so do not remove the protective film, that means from the inside though. Do not clean around edges of the screen with any sharp objects. Who the hell cleans with a sharp object? Do not press on the internal screen with any sharp objects, such as pen or key. I mean, it's made out of plastic, so that's given. If you already used a foldable device, you probably know how ridiculously fragile they are. Almost as fragile as ego of a Redditor. Do not press on the internal screen camera. Again, that just refers to the plastic screen in this case. And slight crease and sounds are normal. There is no crease right now. You can kind of see it, but there's no sound yet from folding it. And I'm saying yet because as a user of a folding device, I know that after using it, you will start to hear kind of like a creaking sounds of the display when it's being folded. And like the message states, it is normal. Though for me, it ended up, the display, the folding one, stopped working. Could it be due to the creasing sounds? Possibly, but it also was a Samsung, I do want to point out. Anyway, we also have this little pen flip that we have with every Huawei device that you can use App Gallery for everything that is app related, and if you don't find it there, you can use App Clone or Phone Clone to basically clone the application from an Android phone to this one. Now, inside of the package here, we will have a heap a lot of wasted space, as this is completely empty and it only provides you with a single cable, type A to type C, that could have taken literally a 1/5 of the space of this entire area, right? Oh, and also this for no reason, so you can slide that in there. And then on the other side, instead of having what I presume will be a charger, yeah, we don't have that, because hell yeah, we can have an entire box with no charger for $2,000. What are you huffing? Holy crap. Now I do want to point out the case. It looks pretty nice. It has a built-in kickstand, if I can actually figure out how to use it. Oh, there we go. That's how. So, and that will just clip onto the back, like so. So it's not adding too much bulk. It also has the leathery finish in terms of, probably not like that. So that works. I guess that works too. Anyway, so there we go. Now, taking a look at the more important parts of the device and the ones that I will be more critical about, if I haven't been already, that should probably, give you a perspective. So let's just start with the displays. Those will be the positive things that I have to say. And we have a foldable LTPO OLED display with 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR, vivid, and a peak brightness of 1800 nits. It also boasts a 91.5% screen to body ratio with a pixel density of 418 pixels per inch with a Kunlun Glass 2. Now that refers to this one, which calling it glass is a very rich description, as like the pamphlet mentioned. Don't use anything that might damage the plastic because it's made out of plastic. They didn't say plastic, but basically any little thing can damage it, even your fingernails, which as far as I remember, my glass screen doesn't get damaged from fingernails, nor does this one. Now this one at the front, actually I should probably boot up the device. This one at the front will be, if I can actually find it, where's the front one? I can't find it. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. So the front one is a 6.45 inches display with a resolution of 1080 by 2440 pixels. Also OLED 120 HDR display with a peak brightness of actually much higher brightness of 2500 nits compared to that the 1800. So there we go, you can kind of see it right now. And if I open it up, here is the inside one. So display-wise, like I said, it's good. But that's where I would say this ends considering the price tag. So moving on, battery-wise, we're looking at 5110 mAh battery with a 66 watt charging and 50 watt wireless charging. That's actually not that bad for a folding device to have a 5000 mAh battery. It's still actually pretty good. Considering this device is also thin and foldable, I have to say that is actually good. Now, it has 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM. It comes with a Kirin 9020 processor, and that's basically what I would say kills this phone for, well, any consumer, I would say. For $2,000, you get something that performs worse than what you can get right now at a, what is it, like 1/3, 1/4 of the price? But yeah, about 1/3 of the price. So what I'm about to bring up is literally I paid for it a third of the price. This is the Nubia Z70 Ultra. This costed me $600. It comes with a Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is the newest processor, and I believe 12 gigs of RAM. And it's going to outperform this by a decent margin. So what do we get right here? If I go into nanoreview.net benchmarks, as a comparison to the Snapdragon 8 Elite between the Kirin 9020, we are looking at CPU performance. 8 Elite being 99 points, this one scoring measly 63 points out of 100. Gaming performance 100 versus 46. Battery life, Snapdragon 93, Kirin 81 points. So it's pretty good in terms of battery life, but most processors do have a okay-ish kind of scoring when it comes down to battery life, especially the lower powered ones that are usually crappier in terms of CPU and gaming performance will have a good battery life. In any case, the nano review score that nanoreview.net gives it is 61 for the Kirin compared to the 98 for Snapdragon. So on Antutu benchmarks, on Antutu 10, we are looking at, what is that? 2,800,003 points for the Snapdragon versus 1.225 million for the Kirin. So 1,248,520. So it's just straight up half of what this offers. And the Antutu is, I believe, a GPU, or not only GPU. Antutu benchmarks measures CPU, GPU, RAM, and I/O performance in different scenarios. So this is just like, I guess, general benchmarks for everything, and it's half. So that should give you a bit of a perspective. Now, the reason I'm focusing so much on this is because you get to pay $2,000. There is no reason whatsoever for this egregious price to not give you straight up the best everything, no expense spared, literally top of everything. And I don't really feel like this is a top of everything. Hell, I don't even think this is like top of the last five years of phones. If you compare it to like 3-year-old, for instance, Samsung Fold, I'm pretty sure that Samsung will outperform this one in terms of specifications. It will have most likely the same kind of display. In terms of battery, Samsungs are not, I guess, too great at battery, but in terms of performance in general, it just, Kirin doesn't really compare. So, and it will obviously be significantly cheaper, which is what I would consider always to be the defining factor. Specifications are great and all, and whatever is faster is better, but not if faster costs 2 times more for 10% increase, or in this case, more for less. Then it just completely defeats the purpose. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from with this specific phone. It is just insanely expensive. Now, I haven't even gotten through this fully yet, so let's go back to the cameras now. We have a 50 megapixel wide sensor, 48 megapixel periscope telephoto, 40 megapixel ultra wide, and you can do 4K or 1080p at this device, though it doesn't really mention the frame rates at the GSM Arena. And then we have 8 and 8 megapixels for both the selfie right here and the internal one right here. And again, 4K and 1080p supported. Again, no frame rate mentioned. And yeah, that almost sums it up. Other things that I didn't mention is the fingerprint sensor that doubles as a power button right here on the side. Type-C charging port at the bottom, along with a speaker grill and our SD SIM tray. There is no expandable storage. And at the top, we have more speakers. If I take that off, there we go. We can see we also have, we can see this little dot, black one right here, is an infrared sensor or light. So this allows you to control appliances around your house that use a infrared remote controls, for instance like set boxes or AC units, which might be very handy for people that travel. If you're in a hotel where you don't have a remote control for your AC unit, you can just whip out your phone and assign that to control the AC unit in there. So it is beneficial. So I did want to point that out. But there we go. That's everything that you get for a just enormous $2,000 or euros as it's being described right here. So yeah, it's a insanely expensive phone that falls short in terms of processing power. So yeah, that's basically it. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.